Hello, my name is Matthew Dye, and I'm a junior at the Overlake School. Today I will be presenting my redesigned product, the flashlight for the wild. The product I am redesigning are pig-shaped kids flashlights sold on Walmart at $14. These products represent a large market competitor in the youth flashlight industry we aim to compete with, especially to our target demographic, children and teens. Upon interviews with 11 randomly selected individuals that represent the target audience, we noticed almost all of them like to go outside either as a preference to indoors or for recreation. Furthermore, when asked what they would use the reference flashlight for, they all stated outdoor activities or nighttime outside chores like taking out the trash. Our first step in redesigning was using customer feedback. In our interviews, we asked the consumer what they disliked most about the flashlight and what they liked. This gave us a good idea on what to focus on in redesigning. The features they mentioned they disliked or wished was implemented was put into general categories, which were then ranked based on how many times they were mentioned. The main points the audience emphasized was a wish for the light to be brighter, a more ergonomic and professional design, and greater reliability. These factors were then tested to be quantified. The first factor was brightness. A lux meter was used to measure the brightness of the flashlight at 3 feet away. This distance was chosen not to represent a typical distance an object could be from the user, but rather as a baseline for future reference testing. The second test was reliability. The purpose of this test is to measure the proportion of defective flashlights as well as how often it would start working per turn, which is when you press the tab. Everyone in our class got a flashlight, but 7 out of 18 broke within the first week. However, a working flashlight was able to start 10 out of 10 times. The third test was the ergonomics. This test assessed the audience's comfortability with holding the device. 8 random subjects were chosen, and they gave a rating of 6.625 out of 10 on average. Fourthly was the design popularity. This test quantified the audience's approval of the general flashlight design. 6 subjects were randomly chosen, and we received an average mediocre rating of 4.3 out of 10. Lastly, the battery life and type was chosen with the specifications listed on the website. These weren't necessarily given by the user as something they wanted to change, but we found it necessary to improve the brightness, as the more electricity, the more energy that the battery could give out, the more light and for a longer time the LEDs could shine. Functional modeling served as the base action pipeline that we built our components around. Specifically, we made an AFQ flowchart with consecutive actions from picking up the flashlight all the way to putting down the flashlight. Each action corresponded to a specific function, which in turn gave inspiration for the design that we came up with later in our brainstorm. For example, in our AFQ function below, the user action of picking up the flashlight led to the product function of providing a grip and texture. My group then brainstormed cost-effective ideas that could serve this function and purpose, such as using a rubber grip or having little texture pads. Our process of creating ideas was brainstorming any solution we could come up with, choosing several of the most promising for C-sketching, in which other groups would create their own addendums to our design, and finally putting the designs in a pew chart. This pew chart helped show the advantages and disadvantages of each flashlight design. 4 flashlights were chosen from the C-sketches to the pew charts, with 1 as the baseline. This is a brief overview of the 4 flashlights. A baseline flashlight would feature the cylindrical shape with a rubber grip. A retractable tray would hold AAA batteries, and an on and off button would be used instead of a switch. Flashlight A had a cylindrical shape too, except with pig ears. 4 LEDs would be used and centered in the cylinder. instead of the 2 in the competitor flashlight. Nodes would be used to adjust brightness. A rubber grip with divots for texture would then be implemented. Flashlight B had 2 LEDs in each nose hole with an on and off switch. A string would be attached that when pulled would power the battery, similar to a chainsaw. Flashlight C proposed a hand crank to power the light with many aligned LEDs with a more box shape. Using the advantages seen from the Pew chart, we used the best features from each design as well as the original competitors, all while keeping conscious of cost and labor intensity. Our final flashlight had a cylindrical shape that was curved to fit the hand. A manual charging tab was used, similar to the original flashlight. It featured a soft rubber grip that molded to the fingers of the consumer, as well as 2 standard AA batteries providing electricity to 4 LEDs. An on-off button was used instead of a switch, which the competitor used for the sake of the user's convenience. Our general idea was that on outdoor trips, the flashlight would provide ample brightness and longevity, even when the user was too tired to charge it. However, during emergency scenarios, or if they didn't provide spares, the user would also be able to charge it manually. The redesigning had immense results. Though we couldn't create a concrete prototype, most tests were able to be completed through calculations and user interactions with the replica seen in the last slide. The brightness was able to double to 6 lux per 3 feet. Ergonomic and design ratings were able to improve to a more positive 8 out of 10 and 7 out of 10, respectively. The defective flashlight tests for reliability were not measured though, as much of the problem came from production stages rather than designing. Battery life and output capacity was also significantly increased per battery. Due to a use of greater high-quality resources, my group calculated that to turn profit, our flashlight would need to be costed at $20 compared to the $14 of the competitors. However, we believe that the superior quality and its better fit with customer needs would give us an advantage in the open market.